So, well, I've been at Can Consultants full-time for about 2 months. Before that, most of you know I was in publishing for quite a long time, employee #1 at PLOS, and then I was at Columbia at the Center for Digital Research and Scholarship, doing library publishing, among some other things, the repository publishing. So I'm going to take a step back from what Robert had talked about, really wonderful numbers that he's talking about, what Welcome is doing, and take a look at a bit more of that value question that he was asking there. So the standard pricing practices, and most people in this room have indulged in some of these, follow 3 main strategies for products. So if you think what you're doing is producing a product, these are the 3 main ways that you do that. What will the market bear? This is what we did at PLOS to set what is now the canonical $3,000 APC, was 2003. Lots of people still in print. We took a look at what color charges were, what page charges were for the major competitors, or who we were hoping were going to be the major competitors of PLOS Biology. So that would be Science, Nature, Cell, MBOJ, and so on. And we said, okay, so what is the average that authors are paying right now out of their own funds in order to fund those charges? And the average was $3,000. So we pretty much knew that people could pay $3,000. And then what we could say beyond that is, well, you already are paying that for these journals. If you go in PLOS Biology, you'll now have an open access option and be out there for no more than what you're already paying for that. So that became then the canonical number is interesting. But there are a lot of canonical numbers that float around. But it was what the market will bear. It was certainly not what the cost of producing an article in a high-end editorially run journal was or is. The second one is gross profit margin, and that's this is the price, and here's the cost, and now times 2, and that would be a really good number. And then finally, the most significant digit pricing. So that famous $29.99 instead of $30. People like that. So all those pricing things. But for services, so if what we're doing is not producing a product, but actually rendering a service, that then becomes much more complicated. So then it becomes a perceived value for service and quality. At what I'm paying, is that worth for whatever reason what I'm paying? So so that's where keystone pricing, that double wholesale cost for the production, doesn't account for the service value. So I want to ask a kind of more of a meta question along those lines, which is, what are we selling as publishers? Are we selling a product, a service, both, neither? If both, does the product, is that the one that we should set the price on, or the service, or some combination? And if we're selling something else, then what? If anybody wants to answer that last one, it's more of a thought question. But the elephant in the room, I think, is actually putting it on that particular question, which is, what kind of business is scholarly communication? Is it different from other kinds of businesses that have products or that have services? Is it different from other kinds of publishing, where you're selling, fiction or magazines or that kind of thing? Is scholarly communication different because of the players within the system, because of what some people would call the gift economy of parts of the system, where when I explain to friends and family and so on who aren't related to academia or scholarly communication in any way, they're actually baffled by somebody would write something and give it to somebody, and now somebody would sell that and somebody would buy that back, and that's a very very interesting arrangement to them that the creator of the work is not actually really, for the most part, benefiting from that creation, other than all kinds of things having to do with value and not things that have to do with the actual cost. And I'd also like to ask, and again, just for pondering, what kind of business is open access publishing? Is that different, again, from scholarly communication as a general business? So is it a different kind of animal entirely? And so part of what I agreed to talk to has to do with the transparency thing, and Dan's already, done his disclosure on transparency. But how open does open need to be? And there are various kinds of open. So open government is something that we can understand in terms of you pay for this and you have the rights to understand that. What do we mean in this case about transparency, particularly in open access journal publishing? What is transparency? So the buyer beware might actually apply here. But as we were talking about what transparency means, even within an open access environment, and certainly there are people all across the range here, where we felt like we could all come to agreement on this panel was that full openness, as in, everybody needs to account for every penny and be honest about how what they're bringing in and what their costs are for, direct and indirect and fixed costs and how much, and so that somebody could actually put a number on. That means that an article processing charge should be X, and it doesn't really matter who you are, or maybe it does matter who you are, but then you would need to know all those details. That kind of full openness is not what we're talking about when we're talking about transparency. So what are we talking about? We are talking about what Robert's already referred to, which is understanding what the products and services are that are being provided. And you'd think that that'd be pretty straightforward, but it's actually more difficult sometimes for people to sort out. Like, what is your agreement? What are you paying for? And what is the price? If you're clear about what the price is. And we do think that for open access publishing in particular, talking about what kind of markup, and open access publishing within the scholarly communication realm in particular, what kind of markup is an important question. You should know that so that you can make an informed decision about, are you getting the value that you need? And that doesn't mean that people can't put markup on their services, but you should know what you're paying for. So we're not saying that services need to be at cost, but we are saying that people need to know what it is that they're being offered. So be informed. And that's how to contact me if you have any questions, comments, or so on.